Can't hear you.
How about now?
Now
There you go.
can.
All right. And I think I'm actually streaming over here. Holy moly, we did it. How has your week been? Chris, you've always got some energy for me. What is going on in your world?
Oh, I don't know. I bought myself a camper in Otis, so I've been like really slacking in the work world this week. Going for some balance.
Let's talk campers. We'll get to headlines and we can get there, but I slept in a Tesla last weekend. That was my camper. Got myself a air mattress that felt like I was sleeping in a hotel. It was unbelievable, and we did a hockey tournament while sleeping at a state park, which I would highly recommend to anybody that's looking for a cheap fun night. The park was awesome, showers, fire pits. I think it was like $23 a day. So yeah, that was my camping experience. But tell us about your trailer.
Well, I decided I needed a little work-life balance, so I was going to get one in Rhode Island, which ended up being like this perfect little spot to Misquamicut, Mystic, whatnot. But let's be realistic, I am a workaholic. And being 2 hours away, decided that it was too far. Woke up Monday morning and I said, Otis, why am I not going to Otis? And I have a couple friends that have a place at Laurel Ridge. So I ended up going up Monday. The way they do it there is you buy ownership. So you have ownership in the campground itself, 1/100th of an ownership. So I ended up getting the camper and I stayed there Friday night, woke up Saturday and said, this is way too small for me. I need a bigger camper that my people can fit in. Went to Longview, picked out a new one. And now I've been up there trying to get the other one ready. I'm trading it in, and this all is transpiring this Saturday. So that's the reason.
So you bought and have already upgraded.
I did.
Yeah. Martin's saying boats the same way. Yeah, like once you get into that world, you're hooked. Do we have any other like camper people with campers? Has anybody else slept in the back of a car at these campsites? Done any? What do we have? We'll talk camping a little bit before we get into these headlines. Lauren, go ahead.
So a couple years ago, my dad bought their first campsite up in Broomfield at a campground. And they had it for a year or two, and then they saw a better site open up. So they upgraded to a new site, to a park model. Like they do the whole thing. So he actually decided he just moved to South Carolina, is selling his house here. So during the summer, they'll come and they'll live in the camper up here. And the rest of the year, they'll be down in South Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's amazing to see all the different setups. You got people that are just driving the full rig, or they got the pull behind, or you're super budget like me and you're just sleeping in the back of your car. But it was a really fun experience. Just walking the park, and they got electricity and running water, and maybe it was a little bit of a bougie park or something. I don't know, but I thoroughly enjoyed, and I would highly recommend anybody that hasn't done it, give it a shot. So before we move on to headlines, anybody else want to put their 2 cents in on campers and campgrounds or anything like that? All right. So headlines this week, a couple of big things that were kind of hitting a lot was around mortgages. So rates fell to 6.57, which is the lowest, I guess, since October of 2024. So 5 basis points there. But at the same time, mortgage applications slumped to the lowest level since May. So I don't know, Dan, I see you on. I don't know if you want to talk anything about rates or applications, or, I think people are just, everything that I'm reading, they're just nervous about the economy. So the Mortgage Bankers Association reported 3.8% fall in applications. Purchase applications dropping 6% because you do have refi and purchase kind of mixed in there. So refi shares were 40% of the mortgage business. So anything to
Yeah,
add,
so
Dan?
yeah, so definitely we've got the best rates we've had since last October, almost a year. Um, Average rates right now, conventional rates, you can get down into the even low sixes now. A conventional 30-year fixed mortgage, FHAs and VA loans, even lower. We can do like 6% right now on those types of loans. So rates are improving, but like Steve said, it's not totally correlating to more applications overall. We have, heard from, you hear anytime you see low rates come up or a rate drop, you hear from people who, maybe bought recently and kind of asking about the refis. So we've seen a little tick up in refi inquiries, this week, but again, the buyers are still kind of feeling that hesitation overall, that we're still seeing. So yeah, I mean, pre-approval applications have been down. Now, hopefully we see more news another week or two worth of news as far as low interest rates can hopefully change that and help those people that are on the fence to get off of it and to make that move to move forward and buy.
So a couple of follow-ups. One is we've got to move in the direction as agents to just be getting aggressive on phones, in my opinion, when this happens. I just, and I hate to, it's like my dad is like, I used to walk uphill both ways to school. It's like, we used to get on the phone a lot more, and I just think we're being lazy. We're trying to wait for AI to do all the work, or a systematic approach through your CRM. But like, this is really good news that rates are at least moving in the right direction. If you've had anybody that's been on the fence, it's just a reason to reach out. Hey, right? Like, not asking you looking to buy or sell. Hey, as your real estate professional, I just want to reach out. Wasn't sure if you were aware rates are at the lowest they've been since last October. Not sure if that's going to change your opinion to buy or not. That's all, right? Just pick up the phone, try and do some nudging and stir the pot a little bit. Dan, what's the general guideline on how much rates have to drop before refi makes sense?
Dude, that's a good question because there's definitely different thoughts to it. In general, people will say, 1% is typically what it would really take to justify a refinance. But it's all about dollars. How much is the person's loan amount? So how much are they going to save, on a monthly basis, and how much is a refi going to cost? It's always just a cost versus benefit analysis on any refinance. It depends if they're in a position where maybe their rate's a little bit high, but they're paying mortgage insurance as well, and they might be able to refinance to lower their interest rate a little bit. And maybe not a full percent on the interest rate cut, but if they're dropping the mortgage insurance, which they may be paying another 0.5% on that, then that might equate to a good monthly savings for that type of person's scenario.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, if refis are 40% of the mortgage business right now, which is that's what the Mortgage Bankers Association is reporting, there's a lot of opportunity out there for refi. I see Chris's comment here. Hey, if you're at 4%, it's going to be a little while. I mean, clearly, a lot of people are not at 3 or 4%, right? If 40% of that business, if you don't know your client's current rate, right, it might just be a reason to reach out. And I guess if you've sold in the past couple of years, if you've sold somebody a house, this could be if you're looking for some phone calls to make, just
Mhm.
make the phone call, right? And kind of share this info. Cool.
So,
Um,
Steve,
yeah.
I will tell you that even though I was away, obviously I was still doing business, and I had a new listing on Yankee and Westfield. I didn't even end up doing my second open house because I had 7 offers, insane offers, and they were coming in hot like, we want you to cancel the open house. I mean, even to the point of no inspections, which I know is going to be a thing they can't say. They can do the whole one day if they want. And on the flip side, I had a super strong offer in on a property which I would have told you was super strong, and she told me there was three above me. So, I mean, I still am seeing where it is not that easy,
Yeah.
to get it.
Lauren, you're always my go-to on this stuff. Are we in play already on the inspections? When does that inspection thing kick in?
October 15th.
All right, so we still got a little while. Okay. And that'll be interesting to see how that's all playing out, and a great discussion for these Wednesday calls of how are people actually handling the fact that you can't, waive inspection. So, well, I will say, Chris, why don't we just kind of, go into my next topic that I had on headlines, which is the new report from Realtor.com here, which shows home prices dropping. So active listings surged, so 25% increase on active listings, meaning more listings sitting on the market, and new listings grew 7.3%. Okay. The problem is it's not happening in New England, right? So I know we've got some of our Florida folks on here, and you're definitely seeing that down there. But in New England, it's been pretty stable. But we had home prices decline in 33, right? So we need to understand what's going on nationally, but also obviously what's going on locally. So 33 of 50 major metros, led by Austin and Denver, had 4% drops. So inventory expanded most in the West. So inventory up 32.5%, and in the South up 25%. Midwest and Northeast saw smaller gains. So let me just give you another headline here, which was suburbs for the win. So this is I think this was another Realtor.com analysis. So you had Beverly, Mass. And Leominster, Mass. in the top 10 for hottest suburbs in the U.S., meaning how fast things are going, right? Home selling in 16 days and receiving 4.6 times more views than the average listing. So this is kind of to your point, Chris. We're not getting Springfield on the map here, but it's just stuff is still flying in Massachusetts. Other hot spots were New Jersey and Missouri, where listings saw 3.3 to 4 times more views and sold in 17 to 22 days. Contrast this with 60 to 90 days in the West and the South. So I think kind of what you're feeling is exactly what's going on. Basically all the boom towns from the pandemic are kind of now the places leading the price cuts, and stuff is sitting on the market. Did we see a boom in New England? Yeah, but not as much as you saw all the flooding of people to the Sun Belt, to Florida, et cetera. So I don't know if anybody else has anything they want to kind of add on this topic. All right. So next headline I had for you guys, and I wasn't even aware that this was going on, but this is another NAR statistic. The build to rent market. So this is like builders, instead of building single family homes or condo complexes, building places that they are going to keep and rent. So starts on those types of buildings have gone up 134% since 2019. So this is like, we've always said, hey, the American dream is to own a home. I don't know that, these Gen Zers, because they're saying that is the target. Millennials, Gen Zs, and retirees are drawn to the modern amenities and flexibility that you get with this, this product. And especially with where pricing's at, the affordability might be kind of the same. I don't know if anybody's kind of run numbers on what somebody is paying recently to own a home versus to rent a home. That's something that Keeping Current Matters kind of always kind of publishes, and I'll have to see if I can pull that for next week, where, which one is it, cheaper to do. Anybody run that recently for one of their clients? If they were trying to rent something versus if they were trying to buy? I don't think I've ever seen, that kind of demand for build to rent product since I've been in the business. It's always been you buy your house and you will live there forever. But I kind of feel like that's the economy that we are moving into, where people want to be able to not be tied down to stuff. You know, I want something that's month to month. I want to be able to contract. I want to be able to cancel after 30 days. You know, are we starting to want that now with housing? Thoughts? Anybody dealing with this with some of their clients of just like, you know what? I don't know that home ownership is the be all end all. Maybe I just will continue to rent. I'm running the numbers and I might as well just rent, you know? Margareta.
Good morning, all. Nice to be back. I wonder how much of that impact is not so much that the rentals are, I mean, there is definitely a demand for that. The life, I think, purpose has shifted and the flexibility is critical for people. But there's the loans now, you get those what do they call them, SCRs loans, whatever. They're like it's per investment. A lot of investment people are interested in getting into rental opportunity because they want to kind of flip the rentals, multi-unit rentals. If I see that, I think that seems to be like a trend right now for investing a higher number. It's not just a flip for a multifamily or 2-3 family. It's about the 15, 20 units families. And I wonder if that is affecting that number.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, I do know you're seeing, you know, if you look at the moves that these big private equity firms are making, you know, they are buying up a lot of single family properties as well as the multifamily stuff. So I don't know, you know, could we, you know, turn into a world where it's more renters than owning your homes? It's interesting to think that that shift could potentially happen, but I definitely don't think it's out of the question.
Yeah, on the lending side too, as Margaret had mentioned, you know, looking at DSCRs, these programs are kind of starting to expand their guidelines as well. We have financing options now for up to a 10-unit building, not as a commercial loan. It's as as a residential DSCR investor loan. Up to 10 units is the max that we can do now, where we used to be able to do 5 to 8. We've got investors now that do up to 10, and we've even seen that like maybe even starting to expand even further for things that we'd be able to do here on the residential lender side. You know, obviously you start to getting into those higher unit projects. You're looking at commercial products, commercial lending, but we're starting to see more products become available that we can offer for those type of investors.
Anybody else want to comment on rent versus buy versus running the numbers or anything that you're experiencing with your clients?
And just as a side note, you know, ultimately that's very like people are very focused on passive income. With the boost of AI, you got everybody like, well, how do I not do much and get money? And you know, that is a highlight of the whole passive income situation. The other thing that blows my mind is apparently people are having multiple jobs now, and they're able to handle several jobs, full-time jobs at a time because of AI, and you know, that just a separate issue.
I will say on the passive income, I mean, anybody that's owned any real estate or owns even their own home knows it's anything but passive, right? I mean, rental properties are a headache. It is a full-time job. It is not mailbox money by any means. Your cash flow is typically non-existent. You know, if you are buying a property that appears to cash flow, you think you're going to make $1,000 a month on it. Something is probably off, right? Most of these properties, you know, even with 20% down, are break-even proposals that, you know, at the end of the day, you know, you are paying down the principal on that property, and at the end of 20 or 30 years, when you're done, you're going to have a great asset. I'm not saying this isn't something that you should do, but to think that it's going to be passive cash flow, you know, that is definitely a mistake, because basically, you know, if the property were doing that well financially, then the price of the property is going to go up, and they kind of move in unison, you know. So you can run numbers all you want trying to look for that property that's going to cash flow, unless you are buying something that needs major rehab, where you can get it for a good number, put some sweat equity into it, refinance it. Now maybe it can make a little bit of cash flow, but just buying something and thinking that it's going to cash flow is highly unlikely. So I don't know if anybody kind of wants to talk to that, or does anybody have any questions on, investing or being a property manager or multifamily, anything like that you want to chat about or might have a question? If somebody's thinking about buying their first property and might have a question about it.
So when I was overseas, having to manage the 2 properties that I had here was super tough. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, I mean, doing it remote is even harder. You've got to have a great crew. If you've got good handyman and you got good property managers, it obviously is easier, but definitely not passive. All right, let's get into some experience shares. A couple of things had come across my desk, but I'd rather open it up to the group. Does anybody have anything that's happened to them over the past week? Good, bad, indifferent. That's just a good share for the group. Hey, this happened. It was a learning experience for me, and I'd like to share. Go ahead, Marin.
All right, so
Look
I
at
have a
you. Hey,
client.
look at you raising your hand, brother.
Look,
I love
I'm
it.
learning. I'm learning. You
That's
can
good.
still teach a old dog new tricks. Well, there's a couple issues I had it with this. One I had to talk to Lauren about. This woman, older woman, buying condo. Sometimes she would just call me, "Hey, where are you?" I'm like, "What do you mean, where am I? We're scheduled to meet tomorrow, not today." Like, one of the concern was she able to do this transaction? So we called the attorney, because the attorney actually had the exact same, worries about her. But, the family said she's fine. She's just stressing out over a breakup, blah, 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 blah. So everything's going fine with the condo. We're scheduled to close tomorrow, let's just say. And she calls me at 8:30 at night. I am moving to California with my girlfriend night before closing. I'm like, all right, well, you're going to lose your deposit. So, give her a bunch of ideas like, hey, listen, maybe we can still close on it, wait a month or two, and then we can, put it back on the market so you're not losing 20 grand at least. Nope, nope, nope. So she's scheduled to meet with the attorney at 1:30 to get some funds from another sale that she was, doing. And 12:45, I get a phone call. How much do I need the check for to buy the condo? 45 minutes before. So she put me through the ringer, literally. And then another share I have is
Martin, let me.
Go
I
ahead.
just want to pause there. Has anybody else dealt with somebody and has a good experience share around questioning whether the person is capable, competent to purchase? Has anybody dealt with anything like that? And what steps did you take, or what happened on the transaction? Is that coming to mind for anybody? Did you deal with that? If somebody that was like, I don't know if this person's in the right state of mind to be able to buy a property? This is a
I guess
big,
I just get the crazies.
yeah, it's a big financial decision, and I really haven't had to deal with that much. When you're taking your licensing exam, that's definitely one of those questions I feel like that was on there. It was about like, you got to make sure that the people that you're dealing with have the capacity to purchase. But I really haven't had that come up too much. So I was just curious if anybody else might. But all right, what else did you have?
So
Leanne, hold on. Well, get
Okay.
your microphone on, Leanne, and put your camera on. Don't be putting it in the chat. Jeez. What'd you have?
I think I had almost the same scenario as Martin had. Um, Last week, my closing that was supposed to be, well, it did end up happening July 31st. It was an all cash and it happened in 14 days. And the night before, the woman's like, I don't have the money to close. I was like, you just showed me, like, when we put in the offer, you showed me your proof of funds. And now you're saying, and it was 25,000 beyond what she needed. And now you're telling me you don't have the money to close. And I couldn't tell if she was just BSing me or if she truly has a problem. There was suspicion that she's a hoarder. And so throughout the whole process, I gave multiple opportunities to back out. And we discussed, you know, when she could back out and like when she, all of this, all the things. And night before at 5 o'clock, she's like, I don't have the money to close. I'm going to ask my sister, but I don't think she can. And so I had to go through the, process of talking to the list agent to, because I've got to say something. I'm not going to do it the morning of, because she's dealing with crazy seller on her side, putting her through the ringer. And so I called her just to be honest with her, gave her a heads up of this, might not be happening. And then I did a showing. And by the time I came out of the showing at 7 o'clock at night, I had a text that my buyer was able to borrow money from her sister, and we closed. So I called the list agent, and luckily she had a showing too, so she couldn't call her seller yet. So the two of us were put through the ringer uh 12 hours before close.
Yeah, it's a great share, and I appreciate you putting this one on the table. And I just, over the, I don't know, almost 20 years now that I've been doing this and seeing it happen where we've just got something that we're a day before close. I tell you, the worst thing that you can do is any sort of a pressure tactic, right? That's the ones that's going to come back to bite you and turn into a lawsuit. A lot of times, I know agents can be paycheck to paycheck, and you need that money and you are counting on that money and you are pushing for them to close. And we really need to take a deep breath, take a step back, and really figure out what is in the best interest of that client. Because sometimes what's in their best interest is to lose their deposit and back out of that transaction. And so we need to understand that. We need to be okay with that. Because if you start to pressure and there are text messages and emails that it looks like you are pressuring or trying to get them to do something that they don't want to do, you could get yourself into some real trouble. So please be careful if those scenarios come up.
Yeah, I try to operate like if I have to defend my actions in court. And so I always make sure that it's always their decision to move forward, because yeah, you can back out and you are going to lose your deposit, or we'll do our best to not do that. Maybe the language is there, but yeah, I just move forward always with the thought process of, if I have to defend my actions and what I said and these text messages and voicemails or whatever in court, how is that going to look? How's that going to come across? So I agree with you.
Good.
To be careful.
One
Martin,
thing the attorney
go ahead.
did say, because I talked to her right before, she was actually writing an email, and she said that I should do the same, just to reiterate everything we talked about. Yes, you can lose your deposit because of this. You decide to change your mind to move to California, and literally somebody she met online. So that was, we were all concerned, like, what are you going to do? Move to California and then what, get kicked out of a house? You don't even know where you're going. So that was our biggest concern with that is, we just to follow through. If something like that does happen, always send an email reiterating everything you talked to them about, so they can't say you didn't say it. So.
Yeah, one of the other things that you kind of slipped in at the end there, Martin, and I've seen this happen before too, is we've got somebody that's nervous. They're getting cold feet maybe, or maybe there's a realistic reason why they don't want to move forward on the property, but you've got a sizable deposit on the line. And I've seen some financial situations, and this is just something to keep in the back of your mind where, hey, look, I get that you don't want to buy this property, but you got a $50,000 deposit, and what we're buying this property for and what's happened maybe in the market, or, hey, we just caught the seller at the right time. And I think there's $75,000 to $100,000, worth of wiggle room here that if you just turned around, did a couple of things and put this back on the market, you would actually make a little bit of money and not lose your $50,000 deposit. So that's not going to be the case for every single house, and it definitely depends on the size of the deposit that is at risk. But it could be in their financial interest to, even if they don't want to own that property, financially, what could make the most sense is that they do just go through with the closing, right? They do a couple of things and they put it back on the market. Obviously, there's risks, right? But just running through those numbers and knowing that that is one of the options for somebody that does want to back out. Martin, you had a second scenario that you wanted to bring to the table?
This is just kind of funny. So showing a home to a client, he's an older gentleman. And he's having issues with his cell phone and everything else. And I'm like, all right, we're gonna put the offer in. And I'm like, are you good with computers? Because I thought, older gentleman in his 80s, didn't think. And needless to find out, he owns the biggest computer company in the area. And I asked him if he was good with computers. It's
That
like
is,
asking Bill Gates, hey, do you know Windows?
yeah, yeah. It's interesting because this does come up where you've got somebody and you're thinking, God, is this person going to be able to get through the digital signature process? As easy as it is, it's definitely something that you got to kind of just ask about, because for some of these people, you're better off just getting the stuff signed in person. So anybody else have a kind of a share around being inclined digitally, or any other questions or things to watch out for with regards to clients and unsophistication when it comes to technology, or maybe a workaround that you've
I had a
used?
client ask for a fax. Do I have a fax machine? I'm like, yeah, it's right next to my VCR and cassette player. Literally on Monday, I'm like, well, I'll get it to you. We'll deliver it. Don't worry about it.
With regards to the facts, if you guys do come across this scenario, there are some pretty cheap ways that you can go, if that's what it's really going to take, that you can go online, you can get these like e-fax accounts for cheap money, and then they fax to some number and you get it in your email. So just in case it comes up, know that that's an option.
I go through this stuff all the time with people with all the loan documents and stuff that we have to have them jump online and review and e-sign throughout the process. There's several disclosures that we're sending to people. At the very minimum, there's 3 sets of disclosures that they have to e-sign to start their application, to lock their rate, and to review their closing disclosure before closing. So we have the app and the website, which makes it a little easier, and hopefully they're docu-signing for you, so they're a little prepped for that. But we go through that all the time, just the difficulty of trying to get them through the process to e-sign. One other note for faxes, because we do run into this a lot, like when we request like employment verifications or certain requests that we have to make, a lot of times they want to fax us documents. So I do have an e-fax number. So like if you were ever in a pinch, Martin, or somebody else, like, and you need to receive something via fax and you don't have a fax set up, just text me and say, hey man, what's your fax number? I'll receive it and I'll just forward you. It just comes in an email and a PDF to me, so I could just send it over to you very easily.
Even easier. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Mark, I think, I don't know if your hand was lingering or you had a comment.
Oh no, I just wanted to touch on Martin because, I mean, his story kind of played out well. That the client ended up knowing technology, but my client is in his upper 70s and does not have a flip phone and does not have a computer and goes to the library to do his email. So I literally had to spend like an hour on the phone with him while he was at the library to go through the offer for everything. So just got to be there for your client.
You got to do what you got to do. Chris. You muted? I see your hand.
I am.
There you go.
I was just going to say, like, to what Martin had to say, and even what Mark just had to say, it's communication is the key, because we assume those things. So in the beginning of the conversation, I always say, what do you prefer for your method of me contacting you? And how do you prefer to sign? So like, I wouldn't have stayed on the phone for an hour at the library. I would have met the darn guy at his house. It's like, what is going to be the best use of your time?
He lives in Boston.
Well, there you go. Refer him out. But the other thing is, I just got a new buyer yesterday. And I got this buyer because he's only 40 and his agent won't pick up the phone. They only text, and he does not want to text. He's a very anxious 40-year-old that likes to have voice to voice. And when he called me, I picked up the phone and he said, "Oh my God, you're an agent that picked up the phone. Like, I don't want to text. Can we talk?" And I said, "Absolutely." And so I think we can't assume at any age or anything. But, obviously I've had my share of elderly that can't use a computer, and it is a good time.
It's it's the worst. Just dealing with your parents sometimes to try and get them to do something. You're like, just click click the button in the. Yeah, oh my God, doing it over the phone is ridiculous. But talking about agents that just get the job done, Mark, I was reading through our internal chat channels, and if you are in a position to do so, I'd love to tell you, or for you to tell your take out the trash story.
Yeah, so I had a busy day yesterday with showings and appointments. Came home. I just finished eating and I was taking out the trash and I noticed like a car pull up to a listing that was two doors down. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Could be potential neighbors. So I didn't really think anything of it. So then as I was, going back to pull out the recycle, I noticed that they were still there and kind of like frantically looking through their phone. And I had a busy day and I just came back, so I know I need the business, but it's also, I wasn't exactly dressed appropriately. I was just in, shorts and a shirt. So just not very professional, but, I sucked up the courage to, go over to say, hi, are they interested in the home? Like what's going on? And they told me that the agent that they're working with, they're not too happy. They wanted to come to the house to see the sign at the house so that they call the list agent to kind of get access to the house. One, it was weird that the listing didn't have a sign, so I just don't understand that there. But I told them, like, hey, look, I'm an agent too. I can probably get you access to the house. So I called the list agents. I was able to get them in the house, and then because there was a listing another two doors down, I showed them that house too. Then I kind of connected with them about, a few things that we had in common. We were both from New York. And yeah, just after connecting with them, I was able to get a buyer contract with them for 3 months. And then, that's just, for me, I guess reinforces the point of Steve always just telling us, what we think in our head is not what other people are thinking. To them, it's like, oh, hey, look, there just so happened that this nice agent wanted to help us kind of thing. So, whereas for me, I'm just thinking like, oh, hey, I'm in, casual clothing, just trying to strike a real estate. So,
Yeah, I mean, when I'm hearing Chris talk about just, be available and get the job done, I mean, that's all you were doing. You see a couple of people, they're hanging out around the property. Hey, can I help you? Meanwhile, their agent can't even make a phone call back. So, the bar is pretty low in our industry. You guys know that. Just being available, it's like the number one thing, showing up, talking to your people. So well, we're just trying to get back to some of those basics of picking up the phone and having conversations. And what do I say? Right now, the thing to be talking about is rates. They're dropping. So, Lauren.
I feel like the conversation of just showing up and just being there has come up a couple times during meetings this week, Steve. And I think we should keep Mark talking here, right? So one thing he does, if anybody sees it, is open houses every single weekend. And he had a really good experience share on one of our meetings yesterday from a second open house. So it was like the third week that a property was on versus that first week open house. So I think you should talk about that.
yeah, so you know, I I learned, doing open houses that it's one of the quickest way to get um, the hottest leads. So that's why I've been trying to do as many open houses as possible. But I did the open house for Jay in Longmeadow. The first week was all repped buyers, so I probably only got like one lead. But on the third week, which is the second open house, 15 people showed up. Only one person was repped, and I was able to give out my number to 6 people that I'm currently following up with. I actually met two of them this week because they're looking to list as well. So, I mean, for me, it's, proof is in the pudding, just being able to be available for these open houses and to be able to get clients.
Yeah, a couple of things that would just reiterate here when you're talking about the buyer funnel and the process of buying. We run a team that's very heavy on online leads. And those leads are typically, at least 6, if not 12 months out. I think 50% of the deals that we close are more than 9 months old, right? So your online lead that's coming in, it's a fresh contact, yes, but they're probably 6 to 12 months away from buying, right? Whereas because they're still just kind of looking on the screen, right? The person that is taking time on their Sunday or Saturday or whatever the case might be to go and look at properties is further down the line for sure. You're probably talking within that 0 to 3 or 4 month window. So you got to take it with a grain of salt. Some of these are going to be bangers and you're going to get 6 unrepresented buyers, and sometimes you might just get 1. The other thing that I think we've lost touch with that I picked up from the Tom Ferry organization was making sure your open houses are mega open houses, that they are an absolute show. There is food, there's music, and most of all, there is a ton of signs. And I think this is something that Mark has still, to this day done. He's just putting in the chat, 12 open house signs. How many people on the call are doing the bare minimum with one at the end of the street and one in front of the house? You just never know. It's free marketing for you guys, right? Put a bunch of them out there, put them everywhere, and just see what happens. Take the extra time to go door knock. The old Century 21 way was 7 to the left, 7 to the right, and 7 across the street, and get your 21, get there 45 minutes early and just try and talk to a couple of the neighbors. So, that open house is your interview, if you will, for potential sellers. If you can get a couple of those neighbors to come, they're interviewing. What did this guy's open house look like? Did he show up 5 minutes before and it's a shit show? Or, wow, this is professional, right? We've got professional signage, we've got food, we've got music, etc. So good opportunity right now to just give a couple of shout outs to some old school brokers open houses that have come across my desk. We've got 2 going on this week. One came across my desk that is happening in Long Meadow tomorrow. Let me just put these dates out there. And it's just kind of crossing my mind that we're talking about doing stuff professionally and making a good show of it. But Sue Drum is doing a Brokers Open 22 King Phillips in Long Meadow. It's 11:30 to 2. You're in the $500,000 price range. Lunch and cocktails. So there you go. There's some free food and booze for agents that want to start drinking in the afternoon. And then Stacy Clues and Stephanie Scanlon are doing one of the bigger ones that I've probably ever been a part of. It's a $6 million listing in Concord. It is an evening Brokers Open, 5 to 8 Casino Royale style. So they'll have signature cocktails, some nice bar bites, and then casino gaming inside this home. So thought those were a couple of unique ones. Maybe it'll inspire you guys to try one of these. I think it's extremely difficult to get agents to show up to these Brokers Opens. My experience, because I've tried these quite a bit, is you tended to get the agents that weren't that busy, that didn't have clients, that were just looking for something to do. But a lot of times, something like this can get you at least some feedback. Right? If it's a property that you're nervous about the pricing on, or that's been struggling to do a Brokers Open, to spend a little bit of money, I think the number one thing that I'd be looking for to get out of it is feedback written down, right? So you've got to have a sheet, like a physical piece of paper in my mind, if you wanted to do a Google form or something that they could quickly fill out, but with information on what did they think about the price, what did they like, what did they dislike, so that you can turn around and go to the seller and say, hey, these are some of the agents from the market and this is what they're saying. So it could be what you need to get a price reduction. So if this could be an opportunity when properties that you're struggling with, try and run a Brokers Open, see if you can get some people to come, just so you can get the feedback to get the price dropped. So I don't know if anybody wants to chime in on Brokers Opens or your thoughts, or if you've done one recently, what did you do? Meg, can we get you on camera and talking instead of commenting? Are you in a position?
I'm driving, so I can't turn on my video.
All right, that's okay.
So in the past, when I've done Brokers Open, I haven't done one this year, but I did do a couple last year. At least when I was putting together the Brokers Open and the invites, it was a way to reach out to, all the agents in the area. I would utilize the reverse marketing tool in MLS to do an invite. I'd also use Facebook to do an invite. I'd use text. I'd use phone call. So it was, a full court press on getting out, this invitation to this Brokers Open. So it was an opportunity for me to, maybe not get all the attendees I might want to these Brokers Open, but at least it got my listing out there in front of these agents when they may have missed when it initially went on the market, the first time around, if that's the case.
Yeah, and as you gain a little momentum in the marketplace, as you become an agent that other agents know, like, and trust, the other thing is after private showings, the automatic showing time thing goes out if you've got it set up to get some feedback on the property. But I know most agents aren't filling that out, but that stuff's really important for you as a listing agent, especially if you're trying to get a price reduction. So this is the time to then say, hey, I know you're going to get 1 million of those and you're probably super busy, but is there any way you could just give me the actual feedback on that, on the property of mine that you just showed, But then vice versa, you've got to be the person that also gives the feedback when asked. You can't be asking other people to do stuff that you're not willing to take the time and do yourself. So, when stuff is flying off the shelf, I don't think the feedback is as important, but if the market starts to slow a little bit, these are the types of things that we need to be able to convince our sellers that, hey, this just isn't working. Any other thoughts around Brokers Opens or any comments there? All right, the next experience share again, this one's coming from our internal chat channels. We had somebody trying to pull comps, and I this has happened to me a bunch, but they can't find the property in the MLS, like in the public record. It doesn't seem to be there, and so just kind of wanted to talk through the different strategies that you can use to kind of find a property, but. A lot of times, for whatever reason, stuff is just listed differently from what it might, it might be on Zillow or Realtor as X, and it might be in public record as Y. It could be, it's literally you go to the condo and it's unit 4, but somehow in public record it's unit 6 because the public record has got a different way that they numbered them, or who knows, something got changed over the years. So a couple of different strategies is one, less is more. Try and put as little information that the MLS is going to require to try and find the property. So, literally just put the name of the street and maybe 50, 60, 150 properties are going to come up, and one by one, try and look through them. If we know the person's name, try and use just a last name or just a first name or something like that. But if you're trying to put too much information into the MLS and trying to find a property in public record, you could run into some problems. So, Mark, I see your hand up. I don't know if you're muted. Anybody else, hey, here's like a little tip or trick on, finding stuff in the MLS when you're trying to get it in public record?
I unmuted.
Okay.
Yeah, so the owner was Unit 7 on MLS, but when I went to Hampden County Register of Deeds, it was Unit 4. And even my friend who's a solar rep, when they pulled their info, it said that the owner was Unit 7. But when you go to the condo, so like the complex, there is no Unit 7. So it was just super weird.
You'll see it on multifamilies too. If you're trying to search for 18-20 Main Street, it could be in there as 20 Main Street, 18 Main Street, who knows, 18 and a half Main Street, or it's all kinds of weird stuff sometimes. So just, less is more. Try different fields with any information that you might have. Any other tips or tricks around the MLS and trying to find a property that we haven't thrown on the table? Nicole.
This is a little off topic, so if someone else has something on this, jump in first, but I just got something from one of the boards. I can't remember, it might have been GAR, just saying for listing agents to really be careful about opening themselves up for lawsuits if they're posting something and there's incorrect information like acreage or square footage. And I was just wondering what people do if we're going off public records, and then we always have clients who say, oh, it's actually 300 square feet more. What are we doing to kind of keep ourselves safe where we're not posting incorrect information?
Anybody have any thoughts on this? I believe is when you just pull from the MLS, what are the areas where you can say that this is based on public record? Isn't there a way to, like, on some of the MLSs, just say that this is the public record info, or that it's not verified, or I don't know. I got a couple of hands up. It's been a little while since I've been in there, so I know I will say anytime that they have given me additional square footage, something in addition to whatever I'm finding in the public record, I am definitely putting something in the disclosures that this is listed as 1,300 in public record. Owner says 1,600 and has not been verified. So something specific on the disclosure. Martin.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. I'm seeing more and more listings saying that buyer's agents to do verify all information, blah, 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 blah. Is that kind of to get everything off the listing agent and putting on the buyer's agent, basically?
Anybody? I mean, how often are we seeing that? Is that kind of the new trend? As I'm assuming these two things are kind of going hand in hand, right? You've probably got some lawsuits. I don't know how significant if you listed at 1,200 and it was a really 1,155. Like, I don't know how much trouble we can get into, or how much a buyer could post closing come back and say, hey, this property was misrepresented.
That was one of the things on the email as well as a buyer's agent to make sure. And that's what I'm wondering, how do we even verify things like that if we're going off public records, besides having someone come in there and do measurements of I don't know how else we would really keep ourselves safe. So I didn't know if anybody else was doing anything above and beyond.
I mean, I can't, the only way to get the actual square footage would be to measure it, hire an appraiser or something to actually measure the property. It seems kind of ridiculous for the buyer's agent to think, or the buyer to think that the buyer's agent is going to be able to verify that information. As a buyer, I mean, to me, that's a risk that you're taking. And to expect every buyer to go and verify this stuff, I don't know, but go, Lauren, what do you got?
I just went through this recently on a new build, where what it was listed at was based off the plans that they had come up with of, a similar property that he had built. Buyer in there felt like, maybe that wasn't quite accurate. And then when we did the appraisal, it actually was like, I think 300 square feet smaller than what was estimated on the new build. So it definitely happens. But I think as far as in MLS, I think it all comes down to disclosures. You are right. There's a lot of fields where you can mark what your source is. Okay. So whether you pulled the information from public record, whether the information was provided by the sellers themselves. So as long as you're selecting, in my opinion, probably here, where that source is. And then living area disclosures is one of the biggest ones, right? Disclosing where the information you got was. We see this a lot on ranches where you'll see a ranch that is listed as close to 2,000 square feet when it is your very traditional 1,000 square foot, 3-bedroom, 1-bath ranch. And that's because the basement is finished or the basement's a walkout and they're including that in there. And then the disclosures will say includes finished basement. But we are, yes, seeing a lot of those buyer to do due diligence.
So yeah, I think, I think the safest way for us is, as listing agents, I don't know that it hurts to put on the listing, information was pulled from the, this is a separate disclosure outside of the checkbox. Information was pulled from the MLS buyer to verify info. It would seem like that is covering your butt, especially if it's within reason, I would think, but I don't know. I don't know that there's any court precedence on this stuff. Like, if you're 50 square feet off, what is the buyer's real complaint going to be? They going to sue that seller for misrepresentation? And what was that 50 square feet worth? I don't know. It seems like a pretty slippery slope, but people are sue happy, and these are the things that we should be discussing here. So if you guys are seeing anything different, please, share it on this group. If you're seeing an extra disclosure, if you're seeing, attorneys making buyers sign something that says that, they are to verify this stuff, I'd love to know about it. All right, 4 minutes left. Let me see if I've got anything on here that we could do quickly. Why don't we finish with this one? This was another one coming from the chat channels where the agent saw a listing that said all offers to be in, let's say, by Wednesday night, and all offers will be reviewed by Friday. By end of day Friday or something like that. And then it's Thursday, and the buyer and the agent's asking, hey, can I still put an offer in? Right. And so, just so that we are all clear on this, our code of ethics, it's Article 1, Standard of Practice 1.7, says that all offers must be presented unless the seller has specifically waived the obligation for you to do so. Okay. And this does it. So in that scenario, if that agent had presented an offer, that seller has to, even though they didn't hit the deadline, has to, unless the seller has refused, present that offer as part of Friday's, and what you would do is you would remind that agent, hey, based on the code of ethics, you have to present this, and where it gets even more interesting is even once the property is under agreement, unless the seller has said, I do not want you presenting any more offers to me, and you have that in writing, right? Even after the property is under agreement, if you were to receive an offer, you have to present it. Now, can that seller back out of that deal and move forward with another offer? Not legally, but if that other offer is cash and $100,000 more, and that seller is willing to risk what it might mean or what the buyer could potentially sue them for performance, there's nothing that that's the seller's decision to make, right? Your job as a buyer's agent, if your buyer says, I still want to submit an offer, you submit the offer. As the listing agent, unless you have something in writing that says, I don't want to receive these offers, you're to present that offer, explain that they are under contract and there are consequences, and they should talk to their legal team about what those consequences could be if they were to move forward with a different offer. But that's the reality of those scenarios. So does anybody have any questions on that? Had this scenario come up? Hey, what about this scenario? All right. All right. Well, as always, appreciate you guys joining every Wednesday. If you're enjoying this, please just take some time during the week. If you have something interesting happen on one of your transactions, you read an interesting article, you watch an interesting training, you pick up something, you can shoot me a message during the week. You could just bring it to the call live. But I think what makes this call the best is when you guys are coming with, hey, I ran into this bizarro situation, or I'm seeing more of this, or how are you guys handling this? That's what makes this show great. So, and then please share the show. I think the more agents that we can get from more regions, the more diverse we can make this group, the better the conversations are going to be. So appreciate you guys. Go have an awesome Wednesday. Enjoy the week, and we'll do this again next Wednesday. All right. Take care.